Next, we have Ms. McCoy from Elon College.
Good evening. Barbara hasn't woken you guys up? You sure? Well, thank you so much for having us here. Just have a quick presentation for you tonight, and it's titled, as you can see, Finding the Right Fit. And I think some of the things that Ms. Polk mentioned in her conversation to you guys tonight are some of the things that I will repeat to you, because I think that repetition in this case will serve as valuable to each of you. I know that you know, for the students who may be in here, your parents might not be as wise as you find them to be, or your school counselors may not have all the information that you think they need to have. And sometimes coming from an admissions professional seems to be more valuable, but please know that we are all in this together, and we work together to make sure you have the most and the best information. So with that, as we're talking about finding the right fit, what are some important factors? The things that I'm sharing with you, I know are going to change your life tonight, right? Maybe? Okay. They should be things that you should know, but I want to make sure that you're really mindful of a lot of these things. So the first thing in finding the right fit is figuring out who you are. On this particular slide here, you see know yourself. And I know some of you are thinking, okay, well, I'm a junior in high school, and I think I know myself pretty well. And parents, if you've been through this process, you've learned your student. But it's really important for the student to identify, as they're navigating this process, right, with you parents as a co-pilot, to know what kinds of skills they have, or what kinds of challenges or job interests they have, because it's necessary in this process. And here's a piece of repetition: over 4,000 colleges. And some of you students in the room, or some of you parents, have already decided where your students should go, right, to school for the next 4 years when they get to that point after their senior year. But it's really important for them to be able to identify options that they may have not seen as available, but also to identify some realistic options that might be in their backyard. And I don't say that because my school is just down the street from you guys, but I do say that because sometimes the best thing for the student is what's closest, even though they feel like they want to get away. How many juniors feel like you want to just get away? You've been close enough too long. Nobody wants to admit that? It's okay, you can tell me later. The other thing is knowing your options. Of course, tonight you have a public school, you have a private school, you have a community college representative that you'll hear about in just a little bit, but 2- and 4-year colleges. Some of you in this room may very well go off and graduate and go to a 4-year school, and some of you may transition to a community college experience before you end up pursuing a bachelor's degree, and there is nothing wrong with that. And it all goes back to knowing who you are and what steps you need to take in order to be successful in this college search process. And we are so fortunate, you know, again, 4,000 schools in our country. We have over 100 universities and colleges just in the state of North Carolina. Over 100. 58 community colleges, 36 independent, and 16 public. There are a lot of options to choose from, and I hope that some of us will make it on your list of schools to consider. Now again, public versus private, so what do you see there? Money versus affordability, right? And sometimes the perception is if you go to a private school, you might get more money. Well, I can tell you for the school that I represent, that's not always the case. But remember that college is an investment, so you have to carry that all throughout the process. But also small, medium, or large. Again, some of you students know, I'm ready to go to a big school, I need to find what's out there. And if you identify your learning skills, the place in which you learn the best, for some of you, a smaller, intimate environment is what's best, and not a big college where you're getting lost in the crowd, or maybe in a classroom you're sitting amongst others and not feeling like you get that one-on-one attention, or where it's actually located, single sex versus co-ed. There are so many things to consider that you guys as juniors, and maybe some of you have already started crafting your list of schools to think about. I do want to put this plug in as we're talking. And so I hope I don't take away from you as you talk about College Foundation. But this past week, we were able to complete our college application week, and it was sponsored by a number of organizations. And this was an opportunity for seniors across the state of North Carolina to apply for many of the 110 schools that we have in our state for free. And this last week, we had over 69,000 applications submitted. That's awesome. Because that means whether you're going to a 4-year school, a 2-year school, public or private, our students in our state have the support of you as parents and the resources in their community to apply, to be encouraged to do that.
Awesome.
The other piece I want to continue talking about, that was just a side note. I got excited because I'm excited about College Application Week and it's a lot of applications that have submitted, a lot of work for our college offices to do. Knowing the facts. Ms. Polk mentioned earlier, research. Nowadays, students, you probably have it easier than anyone's had it in the last 15, 20, 25 years in terms of researching colleges and universities. The websites are probably more helpful, more developed than they've been. So you can, with a click, you can find out so much information about a school, but I can't tell you the value of being on the college campus. How many of you can tell me that you've seen a brochure from a college that's had a person frowning? Or a building in ill repair or under construction, right? A rainy day? None of that, right? We usually have blue skies, pretty buildings, and happy people, right? That's the perception of college. We don't need to talk about the other things that are real because that happens too, but we want to attract you to what our colleges have to offer. But you don't really know what that means and how you feel and how you fit into that school unless you're on that campus. I tell students all the time, anybody interested in traveling to the Northeast? Think you want to go to schools in the Northeast? Anybody? Okay, Dad raised his hand, maybe a student. I tell students, if you're interested in traveling up north for school, then you probably should definitely visit when?
Winter.
In February, right? In the thick of winter. Why? Because they don't cancel school like we do, right? When the threat of flurries come through. They go to school regardless. And if you can't handle the snow, then maybe you want to rethink going to that particular institution. Now, there's nothing wrong with going to visit colleges in the summer, in the spring, or in the fall when it's beautiful, but the reality is that you know you're going to be their students the entire year, and you want to be able to know what it's like to endure all of the conditions, right? Whether it's Superstorm Sandy, which is not often, right? Or a beautiful day, rainy day, or anything else. Attending local college fairs, or even parent nights like tonight, it is so critical when resources are presented in front of you. Know that the information that any of us are providing tonight is free. And as Ms. Polk mentioned, you could go to a bookstore and you can buy books that talk all about rankings and tell you what are the best colleges out there. And for some of you, that will be a starting point. For some of you, that will be your guide to decide what school you actually apply to. But the reality is that you have resources in place that are here to answer your questions and to make sure you get the information that you need to be successful. So I would encourage you, before you start to pay anything, contact your free resources, and we're available, even in the busy season, like right now. I appreciate being away from reading 60 files that I have to get through. But that's neither here nor there. You also see I have the resource here, and you guys have one this evening that'll talk to you about visiting the cfnc.org website, so I won't go into that further, but I cannot emphasize how important this resource is and how much of a national model this website is for students to be able to find the information they need for college application, for planning, for creating resumes, and anything that you need, financial aid and scholarships. But knowing the campus, and again, if nothing else you take away from finding the right fit is to visit the campus. And so what do? Maybe take a tour, do an information session, might take 2 hours of your day. Or maybe you want to go to an open house program that's intended to be a little bit more comprehensive. So you are checking out their facilities. You're eating on campus. How many students know that food is important? Right? It's still important for me as an adult, but it is important. And so in order for you to find out, is this food really good? You might want to first see and check it out before you enroll, right? The last thing you want to do is be on that campus, and the first time you enjoy the food is when you are in your first week on that school's campus. But the other thing too, maybe to have an overnight visit, to stay with a currently enrolled student, or maybe contact an alum from Carborough High School or from a neighboring school that you're familiar with and talk to a student about their experience. There's nothing better than seeing students in an element outside of a planned event. We work really hard at admissions, and I'm sure anyone of the schools represented can say, from 8 to 5, it is our job to make sure that you get the best of what our school has to offer. After 5 o'clock, and through 7:59, it's real life. And so if you have the chance to spend with a current enrolled student on campus overnight in a classroom experience, then you get to see yourself in that particular situation. So I would take advantage. The other is meeting with the admissions staff. Now this will vary per school, how selective the school is, the size of the school. At our particular school, demonstrated interest, that's another term in addition to those deadlines that you'll hear that's really important for some schools. And demonstrated interest could be reaching out to an admissions counselor who may be identified for the students in this area, or may be available for you to talk to and answer questions. Maybe visiting the campus is showing demonstrated interest for a school, and they're keeping tally of what you've done to increase your information about that school. Remember, this process is about you and the information that you gained. Many of you probably already have your perceptions about Carolina or Durham Tech or maybe even Elon. And some of that could be because you've actually visited the campus, but 75% of the time it's because it's what you've heard from somebody else. And we're always here to share the most accurate information. But knowing the campus, visiting the campus, being on the campus, a rainy day, a beautiful spring day, a nice hot summery day, whatever the case may be, you definitely need to make sure you're on the campus. Knowing the admissions process, I'm not going to go into this a lot more because it's already been covered with you, but being aware of application deadlines, I cannot tell you how much of a pet peeve it is as an admissions officer for us to do the best that we can when we send you. How many of you are tired of receiving mail from us? Whether it's email or see my parents tired of going to the mailbox, getting all these publications of smiling people, pretty buildings. We do our best to make sure we're communicating information that's relevant to you, and one of those things are our application deadlines. And it's likely that we don't always change from year to year. But sometimes we have significant changes in our application deadlines. But what you need to know is, regardless to anything, deadlines are set for a reason. Schools handle, in some cases, over 24,000, 30,000 applications. And just because something happened to you, things happen, and you weren't able to submit by the deadline, guess what? You missed it. And oftentimes there's very little mercy applied to this process because we need to get through and review those files that have come in. So I do encourage you guys to maybe create a calendar, and you can start doing this now in the junior year, of things, important dates that will fall. As Ms. Polk mentioned earlier, I wish we could make this easier for you, but the fact of the matter is we do stay up talking on the phone, talking about how fun it is to say, hey, my deadline is 10 days away from yours and they're both binding, but it's not binding. Then it's rolling. You choose. Good luck. Not really. But we do want to make sure that with admissions and scholarship deadlines, as well as individual requirements, that you are staying on task with your part. A colleague of mine once said, this process, 2/3 of it belongs to you, where you apply and where you enroll. The hard part, who gets in, is up to us. But you control 2/3 of this process. So remember that. In terms of financial aid, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I want you to know that there are specific forms that are necessary in many cases for you to be considered for financial aid. And in some cases, we need those forms to come back to say maybe you're not eligible for need-based aid, so that we can award you additional or different resources on our campus. So sometimes, because some of you in here have mentioned that you've had older siblings or children going off to college, so you've been through the FAFSA before, that's available on January the 1st, the free application for federal student aid. But I do encourage you to fill out that paperwork. You will never know how much money you will get if you don't fill it out. So I encourage you to do that. And of course, everybody wants that gift money, right? Money you don't have to pay back. I'm still looking for gift money, so holidays coming up. I'll let you know. Drop me my business card. Let's see where I'm at here. And I'll wrap up with this. So when we're talking about, and I've catered mine specifically to our campus, and in our notes we were tasked with asking 5 questions, or giving you 5 questions to potentially ask. So for any of you, you can take out Elon and plug in another school. But who is the typical student at the school that you're looking at? And when you say typical, what are you looking at? What are you thinking about? What does that mean? Where are your students from? Is it important that every student is from your home state? Do you need to have a diverse geographic array of students on your campus? How would you describe the student-professor relationship? Again, some of you may not be thinking about that. Maybe you're thinking about going to a big school versus a small school, and so maybe that student-teacher interaction is not important, but you already know the value of that here at Carborough, so you already have an answer to that. But also, how do you award financial aid and scholarship? And then the last one, what are the key factors in the admissions decision? There are some intricate and very specific areas of our process that are important to us, but we're always happy to share as much as we can about the process and the decisions that we make. I want you guys to know that admissions is more an art than a science, and we are doing our best to create the best campus community to make our campus work. And sometimes when you get that no, how many of you hear no often? I don't think I should see any hands. Okay. Well, these might be the first of many no's that you get. And I say many because no's come this time of the year. But a no means that's one less decision you have to make, right? One less place you have to enroll in. One plug about the application process before I wrap up with this best advice. Earlier, Ms. Polk mentioned that if you apply to 20 plus schools, that's a lot of schools. And at some point you're manipulating the process and maybe manipulating the integrity of the process for some of the other students who are really looking to be a member of that school. But I want to tell you that the application money, unless you apply for free, is non-refundable, and it adds up quickly. So unless you have every intention on potentially enrolling in that school, I would advise against applying to that school. Okay. So this is the best advice. Colleges are like people. We have different personalities and can come across differently online or in print than we are in person. Take the time to get to know a school well before you make a commitment. You're about to make a significant investment of your time, and that's intentional before money. It's important to you that you take the lead in choosing the right college. So take a deep breath. The ride continues, and I'll be available after it. Thank you, Ms. McCoy.